You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you to another lap of the extra mile for today, June 27th, 2024. We are on our way to Austria in Formula One. IndyCar is preparing for its electric era, and NASCAR was about to be Nashville hot this weekend. And of course, to help me talk about all of this, my co-host for the evening, Christopher Lehman.
How's it going tonight, Darryl?
It's going great. Thank you for all of us who are joining us here on StreamYard and on our various platforms as we begin week number 3 of this new experiment, which I believe is going pretty well so far. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening. And we are going to get to our sponsors in just a minute, but I want to jump ahead just a little bit because during the Virginia Nationals this weekend, we saw an absolutely horrendous crash with John Force during the opening round at the Virginia Motorsports Park. We're going to show this crash to you only because John is alive and recuperating in a local hospital in Virginia. Drag Illustrated has this up. This was originally broadcasted by NHRA TV during the first round against Terry Haddock. John was looking for race win number 3 of the year. And unfortunately, this happens. We'll let you take a look at it.
Cup bluey. John Force just blew the thing up and slammed into the wall at the top end of the racetrack. Take a look at this. 302 miles an hour banging into the walls. You're going to watch Terry Haddock first puff the tire. He's going to pedal it. John's car starts moving around. And kablooey. Banks it off of the right wall, and then the real big hit, in my eye, looked like when he came back across. That is a big-time explosion for a guy that's had a lot of big-time explosions. Wow, he didn't even get that wall. I thought he went over and banked off one and came back for the other, but look at this thing. Traveling across the racetrack. Fortunately for Terry Haddock, he was slowed down to the point that he was out of the way, and, man, that is a big-time hit.
So we'll leave that there. John was rushed to the hospital. The team has been giving updates during the week. Thankfully, he was alert and awake. And this is the most important part, Chris. John Force alert and awake when the safety safari got to him and they flew him to a local hospital in Virginia.
Yeah, that's obviously good news, and he's a tough SOB. We know that, and so yeah, great that he's doing okay. He's alert, and obviously wishing him the very best with his recovery.
Yeah, the most important thing or the condition they're watching right now for him is a head injury. Obviously, he will not compete this weekend in Norwalk, Ohio. His daughter, Brittany Force, will also not be in competition. So Austin Prock in Funny Car will be the only JFR car at the Nationals in Norwalk, Ohio this weekend. But everything there is a testament to the safety aspect that NHRA went through and updated after the unfortunate passing of Scott Coletta in 2008. They shortened the track for Top Fuel from 1,300 to 1,000 foot. They've done a lot of safety improvements to the cockpit area so that blast hopefully did not knock him out. They also have an automatic system for the parachutes if this sort of accident happened. Unfortunately, that did not deploy in this incident, but the issue is when an engine like a Top Fuel Funny Car motor blows up like that, there's very little that will stand up to that. So it is likely that system was damaged or rendered inoperable in that accident. But I've been thinking about this during the week, and if Larry B wants to jump in on this one as well, he's more than welcome to. I have been a John Force fan my entire life. He has been racing funny cars my entire life. I'm ready to see him be done with Funny Car. This was terrifying. He is 75 years old. And Chris, we talk about the safety aspect of motorsports all the time, but there's only so much safety gear can do at 300 miles per hour.
Yeah, which is obviously not very much. It does enough for right now, but it's not. I mean, we know this. It's not always the case. The safety precautions that any motorsport takes is not always enough. You know, not to kind of jump around, but look at MotoGP. They make advancements with rider safety, and every year we talk about multiple people succumbing to injuries, and I know that's very different, but just it doesn't really matter what your advancements in safety are. It's never going to be enough to work 100% of the time. And I think Larry's ready to pop in.
Yeah, Larry B., our producer, and the reason we're all here on IE Sports Radio, and a huge John Force fan. Larry, you got to interview John Force during during COVID. So I know this one, you and I are feeling this one this week.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, that hey, what's up, everybody in the chat room? Yeah, but Darryl, my gosh, I mean, when it happened, when a wreck happens, obviously the first thing your heart drops, because you hope everyone's okay, no matter what, in any auto sport, right? I mean, if something bad happens, okay, oh my gosh, please help them to be okay. Okay, we're good, and that's the natural reaction, and that's just being a human being. But when it's somebody that you've just idolized your entire life and you see something happen like that, especially, and I know I even hate to bring this up because, I mean, thank God John's alive. But I mean, we know that sometimes, well, my gosh, we know that it doesn't take a giant fiery crash for something horrible to happen, like the Intimidator, unfortunately. If you look at Darryl Earnhardt Sr., I mean, his wreck looked like it was just a routine into the wall. Okay, he's going to be okay. And unfortunately, that ended in terror. And till this day, I mean, you look at that wreck and you're like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, it looks like it's so just okay, they're okay, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. So now with Rex even more, now I'm like, oh my gosh, like when I seen Newman doing about 1,000 kick flips a couple of years ago, if you guys remember that. I forgot what track that is, but I mean, immediately, you got your heart struck with terror. So with us, I mean, with John, I mean, it's just one of those things where you seen it happen, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay, I hope he's okay. But then you hear afterwards, okay, so John's gonna be going to medical, and the first thing you think of is, oh my gosh, okay, this isn't good. I mean, obviously they all go for checkups, they all go for to be cleared. But you think 75 years old, Darryl. He's 75. I mean, the man is, I mean, he's gonna, you said it before, Darryl, he's gonna be around as long as he possibly can be in the sport. And it's true. But I mean, we just celebrated my grandfather's 87th birthday, and the man's still moving around. Like, I mean, this is how it's right, Darryl. I mean, especially that older generation too. Those guys, they're not going to quit at any given time. So with John Force, it hit me hard, because I thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, like I hope he's okay. I hope to God, I'm praying for him. Hopefully we don't hear anything horrible in the coming hours. Thankfully, we saw this over here. Well, we saw one of the updates from the JFR Twitter, and we saw that he was okay. Unfortunately, not 100% okay, but he's here and he's okay and he's going to be recovering. But man, Darryl, that scared the crap out of me. You see here, Taryn, what he says, and that's right. I mean, it was a 7th year anniversary actually a couple of years ago when I got to talk to him for COVID, during the COVID, the Black Flag, of course. And yeah, man, it was. I mean, I had never teared up during an interview in my entire life, man, ever. But just what he meant to my father. What John Force meant to my father, and now my father, of course, no longer with us for, my gosh, 17 years now. Just what he meant to my dad. And he always told me to be like John. Be a winner like John. You need to be like John because he's a winner. John wins. You need to be like him, And I remember telling John that, and John even got choked up, I
remember that.
Right? It was a choked up moment in that interview, and I will cherish that for the rest of my life, man. But just it's tough, and I get it, Darryl. I know there's a day where we all got to go. I understand that, but But man, no. And just even thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like, please be okay. You know, you don't want to think anything bad, but it's just, you can't help but to think sometimes, like, okay, John, like, we love you, man, and we're gonna miss you on the track one day, but maybe that's it. You know what I mean? Like, so anyway, Darryl, I'm sorry for talking forever.
No,
man.
you're good, because to me, this feels like Richard Petty when he barrel rolled at the Daytona 500. I think that was 92, and I might be wrong on that one. When he had that accident and his wife asked him in the infield care center, are we having fun now? I mean, are we still having fun, as he's laying in the hospital bed? It's probably that moment where you go, okay, it's time for me. It's time to step away. And I just want to make it clear, nothing reaction time related with John Force is the reason that accident happened. That engine just went off like a grenade. And sometimes that just happens in Top Fuel. I don't know how to explain it. I've talked about it on this show before. Sometimes they're making race cars. Sometimes they end up making a bomb instead. And that's what happened here. But it's just, you could see the emotion on everybody's face the rest of the day. Austin Prock broke down crying on Fox. Ron Capps was pretty shook up. Steve Torrance as well. John Force is a pillar of Funny Car and a pillar of Top Fuel at this point. He's one of the few living legends we have left. We lost Don Schumacher earlier this year. Kenny Bernstein's been gone a mighty long time by now. John is one of the few connections we have to really before Top Fuel got to where it is now, and we don't want to lose him in an accident, and especially something like that. I wish him nothing but the best. And hopefully, he does get to come back and take that last ride the way he wants to, which is driving and not with unfortunate news. But he did say a couple of weeks ago at Bristol after he won, he knows he doesn't have much time as far as driving, not life.
Yes.
And he's already put the succession plan in place. It's probably time to activate that. So we'll keep you updated with any news on John Force's condition as it comes out by JFR and the Force family. We're going to take a quick break, get into the NASCAR conversation. But before we do that, we got to hear from our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Beef Jerky and Real Deal Wax Seals. We'll be right back.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Hey there, eSports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
All right, we're back here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports live here on Streamcast. Darryl and Chris here with you this evening. We're going to pivot from motorsports just briefly because some major news in the world of sports and litigation just came out, and Christopher mentioned it in our chat. For all the NFL fans that are listening right now, and I know there is a lot of them, and you watched NFL Sunday Ticket on DirecTV through the years of 2011 to 2022, you might have a massive settlement check coming towards you because today it was ruled that the NFL violated antitrust laws with their running of NFL Sunday Ticket and were fined $4.7 billion with a B dollars in damages.
Yeah, there. I saw some early projections, and they are saying that customers may receive up to $5 each after lawyers' fees.
Yeah.
So
you're not going to get much as a user, obviously, but I think the more important part is this is going to change probably how these sports do these regional broadcasts. And to bring it back to motorsports, we have the WEC packages, the NASCAR that might be at some point, or not NASCAR, Formula One that has their F1 TV deal online. We know the WEC has one. A lot of these series are going to this a la carte streaming model. They're going to have to be careful in how they do business now, because at least in the United States, because the U.S. courts have decided you swindle customers out of the premium subscription service, you're going to have to pay. And the NFL is going to have to pay big time.
Yeah, I'm going to have to read up on it, but I use F1 TV, and I absolutely love it. That there's no better way to watch Formula One than with F1 TV. It's worth the $80 a year. Hands down, the best investment a Formula One fan can make.
And it is a great. I've watched F1 TV the last couple of weeks to watch the Formula One races as well, and it's improved a lot since when I first started it. But the NFL, the jury found that competition was restricted by only offering Sunday Ticket on a satellite provider, and right now it's only offered on YouTube TV, which is about $300 right now.
Yeah.
For a Sunday Ticket. Will not be buying that. So
nope.
Big news for the NFL. And again, they go to court and they take a massive L. But what did not take a massive L this week, depending on how you look at it, was NASCAR, as they actually did some wet weather tire racing on an oval as they went to Loudon this weekend and had a I'll say an entertaining race. The second half we're going to get into here in a minute that I did not like. They had a big rain delay, unfortunately, and they were able to come back just after halfway when they normally would have called the race, dried the track enough to where they could put on the wet weather tires and use them for the rest of the race. But Chris, I kind of have a bone to pick with how they did this, where they did non-competitive pit stops for the rest of the race, and it was NASCAR's discretion on when they got to change tires. Please do away with that. I am good on the forcing the teams to pit when NASCAR decides. They are big boys now. I hope we have enough running to where it's a free choice of tire.
100%. Let the teams decide. They're absolutely going to make the right decision for them at the moment that it is right for them. Unless Ferrari picks up a NASCAR team, in which case maybe it's good for the sanctioned body to define that. But no, I think that encouraging what we saw. It was a good step in the right direction, but next time let's put a little bit more control in with the teams, and in with the drivers as well.
Yeah, there were some teams that wanted to give it a try on dry tires as the track was drying. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see what would have happened if they tried that. I want to see somebody try it. If you want to put dry tires on a drying but not completely dry track and you want to see what's going to happen, by all means, go out there, make a fool of yourself. You've got to let the strategy lottery play if we're going to do this wet weather thing, or it just feels like NASCAR manipulating the race again. It's got to be open choice for the teams. That's how I feel about it. That's how the teams are feeling about it. They were begging for NASCAR to let them do a free tire change by the time that thing ended. NASCAR did come out and say through Elton Sawyer during the week that they hope to move that way with it, and let's hope that they do decide to go in the direction of free tire changes. So I think the hilarious part of it, we'll get to that in a minute, watching them go green, and you see cars literally running from the top of the track to the apron, trying to figure out what the best groove is to make these tires work, was incredible. Watch them during caution when they got down to get the tires wet, searching for any sort of moisture to keep those tires cool. They were learning. They were learning the ways of rain racing. Unfortunately, my driver got taken out because somebody ran out of talent. But the funny part, though, was Kyle Busch, who had spun 3 times. By that time, he was back in the pack. He was done. He went out there during the initial caution, and I don't know if something broke or he just hooked a right, hit the wall, was out of the race. And Chris, I said this at the beginning, I'm pretty sure we saw a driver rage quit on Sunday.
Yeah. It's it's kind of a shame when that happens. Kind of takes away a little bit of the integrity of the race, in my opinion. But yeah, I would probably agree with you that that's what we saw.
It looked like a rage quit by our boy Kyle Busch, but thankfully, but the winner of the race was the guy that ended up winning the Xfinity race the day before, Christopher Bell. And in the last 7 races here at New Hampshire, he's won about 4 or 5 of them. Bell, this track really agrees with Christopher Bell and his driving style. He's been dominant here.
Yeah. Really, the Gibbs organization has been pretty dominant there, to be honest with you. Denny's got a few. Truex has got a few. Bell's got them. This is one of those tracks that we see some teams that just have a tracks number, and JGR as an organization certainly, I'd probably say that this is their most successful track. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm a betting man, I'm putting money every time we come here that a JGR car is going to win. And so it was kind of a matter of time for Bell, but great for him. I like Christopher Bell. So quite happy for him.
It was great for Bell. It was great for JGR. JGR has some issues they have to deal with. We'll get to that at the end, but they do have some good news that Christopher Bell almost spoiled. Chase Briscoe's going to the 19 next year, as Martin Truex Jr. has decided to call it a career, and we're kind of split on this. I think it's a good move. Get that young kid, get a veteran driver that has needed a better seat to drive in the last couple of years, because let's be honest, that Stewart-Haas seat has not been good, and get him into a higher echelon ride. I think he's going to be able to prove a little bit of his ability. But Chris, you have a different view on it. How do you feel about it?
I don't. Well, and now you put me on the spot, Darryl, and now I'm not sure. Like at first, I was like, there's probably better options out there, and there probably are realistically, but I don't know. It's not as bad of a move as I probably my like gut instinct was. Like my first initial reaction was like, oh, but I don't know. It's probably realistically not as bad as I don't know. I'm coming around to it.
I would have maybe seen Josh Berry, Rodney Childers go there.
That's an enticing combination.
Yeah, Briscoe and Berry finished second and third, and they've been on record as saying they want to stay together.
Yeah,
I would be interested if I'm a top echelon team with an open ride. That Wood Brothers team, they're looking to possibly move off of Harrison Burton, because let's be honest, that has not worked. That could be a landing spot for Berry and Childers. There's a lot of moving pieces going on in a limited version of silly season, although they could end up being the team or combination that stays at Haas, because Gene is holding on to one charter in the Cup Series, which, looking at the Cup Series in that charter discussion, we haven't kept up with it on this show as much as we probably should, I will admit, but the negotiations with that, Chris, it's just not been well, and that might be why you're seeing some of the downsizing by Stewart-Haas Racing, because we just don't know the future of the charter system.
Yeah, and that's definitely going to be a storyline to watch as we go forward. Just because, I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when it was kind of going around Twitter about how they got the worst offer so far, and we talked about it quite a bit back then. But yeah, I mean, you definitely need to have a system that works for everybody. And yeah, I think that's why we saw the price of the charter go down so much between last year. Was it last year when the one went for 45?
40 million, yes.
40, yeah.
On your screen right now is the points as they run, with Kyle Larson leading the way. Continue, Chris.
Yeah, so now they're going for 25. So I mean, that's 15 million in one season. So yeah, it just shows you the faith that the teams have in the charter system. The fact that we lost $15 million in value over the course of a year.
And it's only going to keep going down if they cannot figure out whether or not they're going to make these permanent, because the teams want it permanent. NASCAR doesn't. The reasons why are just they're not adding up.
Yeah.
How they're talking about this is not adding up, and it's going to be a challenge going forward. And Stewart-Haas Racing deciding that, especially with Tony and Gene, let's be honest, we've mentioned it, they have not been good stewards of that team. Deciding to step away, probably for the best. We're going to get to one topic. We'll go out of order again here, because this was a strange story that broke. This goes back to Charlotte in May, when Eric Almirola was supposed to drive the 20 Xfinity car for JGR, got replaced by Ty Gibbs, and no one really knew why. Well, Jordan Bianchi, writing from the New York Times, kind of blew the lid open on that when he came out and wrote that a scuffle instigated by Eric Almirola against Bubba Wallace ended up with Almirola being suspended from that ride. He will be back in the car in July, as that suspension is nearing its end. Now, Bob Pockris asked Bubba Wallace this week about it. Bubba said there were no punches thrown. Whether or not that is true, we will never know because of the video, obviously. But these two, and Chris, I don't know if we've talked about this a lot. There's been a strange beef between Eric Almirola and Bubba Wallace, and it's really one-sided. Eric towards Bubba after Bubba took over while Eric was injured with Richard Petty Motorsports way back when. Eric ended up going to Stuart Haas because of that. Bubba ended up getting the RPM ride. Now, Eric went on to win 2 races after that, but there seems to be some long simmering beef from how that happened. Last year, there was the Eric and Bubba thing at Charlotte, where during the rain delay, Eric Almirola came up, breathing fire at Bubba and gave him a shove. And this just seems to be a continuation of that, and what is probably the strangest beef in NASCAR right now.
Yeah, I wasn't overly familiar with the history there. But it's strange. Like you said, yeah, that's a weird beef to have. I don't know. There must be something that we don't know, we're not privy to. I don't know.
There has to be, right?
Yeah, maybe Bubba doesn't let the team go to Love's or something. I don't know. Maybe they choose a different rest stop on the road. I'm not sure.
Maybe they gotta go to Buc-ee's.
It's an awful strange grudge to have. But whatever. It makes for interesting storylines like this, I guess.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the dumbest folks on the internet are making their comments about it. We're not gonna talk about any of that. And it looks like we have somebody joining us. Michael Ward is here. Michael, can you hear us?
Yeah, I've been here this whole time.
Hey!
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. We have been, unfortunately, new system. Did not see you down there. But hey, man, welcome to the new era.
Yeah, sorry guys. I've been a little desensitized about the start time since we started back up, but I think I'm good now.
It's all good. We're glad to have you back. Jen B will be joining us eventually as well. She's just moving into a new place and getting settled there. She will be back. We have a special announcement when she comes back as well. Don't want to spoil that too much. But Michael, welcome back. As you heard, we were talking about the Almirola suspension. What's your take on it?
I don't really know. It almost seems like Almirola wants to get into JGR somehow, but he can't because certain drivers hold certain seats because of certain reasons. And he just can't, make that threshold because he can't, and then he feels like he has a position over Bubba, I guess. I don't know, but because it's very strange beef. It just feels like it comes out of nowhere.
It really does. And it always showed itself in the weirdest ways, in the weirdest of times. You're like, why are they mad at each other? So I don't know what's going on with Eric and Bubba. They probably need to go talk it out, but I don't think Eric wants to talk it out because it's been years since that crash, and he's still mad, apparently. But for Bubba fans, welcome to the hamster wheel of the danger zone of the playoffs for the 3rd straight year. This team can't get out of its own way. And this is why I've kind of been you hear me on the soapbox. Michael knows this more than I. When they have those early season struggles, you can't, if you want to be a championship team, you cannot get to this point of the season every year and be in the danger zone of not making the playoffs every year and having to go to Daytona, even though Daytona is not the cutoff race this year, every single year of the team's existence trying to get a playoff spot. Now, you missed it the first year. You got in. Actually, you missed it the first 2 years. You got in on a technicality the second year. You got in last year. Good. Got a top 10 finish. Now we're sitting here 17th again because the team continues to make the same mistakes. The team continues to not make good adjustments during the race. They don't bring good setups at this point. And unfortunately, you're on that hamster wheel of doing the same thing and expecting different results. We've seen a lot of teams that have done that. Larry, if you can bring up that graphic we had earlier with the point standings, I'll go through it with you. But a lot of these teams are on that hamster wheel. Austin Dillon, he's on the other side of that one, guys, where the last few years he has been perennially in the 30s, and we've got the chart up now. It's a struggle, and you see the guys down there that are in the top 13. You can scroll down to the bottom half of this page, and as you can see, you've got some guys that don't run well down here, but now you've got your Todd Gittlelands, your Austin Cindrics. We talked a little bit about this last week. You're back here with the Ricky Stenhouses. The Carson Hocevar is a rookie, so we'll take him out of this. The Michael McDowells, the Austin Cindrics. These are the guys that are always like on the fringe. Michael Jordan didn't put a whole bunch of money in this team to be a fringe playoff car. And guys, I don't really know what they can do at this. Well, I know one thing that they should do, but I don't know if they're going to do it, which is you probably need to make a change on who's the crew chief for that 23 car.
We've talked about that for
years.
Yeah. Pit crew chief, it can all go.
And it's strange because it's like every time they try to do something in regards to maybe the crew chief or the pit crew, it starts to seem like it works, and then it just kind of falls off. If you noticed, like I think last year they changed the pit crew, and they still kind of resorted back to their old ways. So if it's not the driver, it must be someone else in the team.
Well, they've got to make some big changes. And even with Tyler Reddick, even though he has the one win, Reddick has not been that strong this year. He's had his flashes and he's fifth in points, mainly off the strength of that win. But there have been multiple weeks where the 2311 cars are in the teens and 20s. It's just a team that should be a lot better. And Trackhouse Racing, which is their contemporary and the team we're always comparing to, I forgot Ross Chastain was ninth in points with how much he disappears, and Suarez has a win. And yet you don't hear about them because most of the time they're nowhere to be found. And there's a lot of teams right now on that hamster wheel of mediocrity that I will call it. They've got to make some big swings to get off it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely just basically echoing what you're saying that, these teams are kind of nowhere, and they're getting decent enough finishes where they're up, in the playoffs or on the fringes, or, even have a win. But, if we're looking at like average running positions, they are nowhere near where they should be, or where we'd expect them to be, at least. So they are going to need to step it up if they're going to make a run in the playoffs, if they're going to make the playoffs. And it's not just, one team versus, like Trackhouse versus 2311. I mean, it's kind of been it's been the Hendrick show this year, kind of like last year. We started off really strong with Hendrick.
Yeah.
And it's really been HMS is the class of the field, and Gibbs right there with him. But other than that, I mean, I think everybody could use some work. I mean, even like my wife, she likes Joey Logano. He's been nowhere this year.
That is a weird one. He has just been
like
completely
where
gone.
Hasn't been winning as much as I thought he would be.
Like she picks him a lot in years to win, and it's just like last week I like typed in 34 points, and I'm like, dang. And it's like he just, I don't know, man. He's gone.
I also haven't seen a lot of Austin Cindric, but I guess you could say that's still experience, maybe.
Possibly. But there's a lot of teams right now that are circling that mediocrity drain, and they've got to get themselves off it somehow, some way. But hey, we're going to take our second break of the evening. When we come back, we're going to get into the IndyCar conversation. Yes, Patrick, there's been another Santino and Romain thing. And also, Alex Palou is dominating at one certain track. We'll be right back here on Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS. The SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we're back here in the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Darryl, Chris, and Michael here with you this evening as the trio rides again. We're going to get into IndyCar conversation. And I'm getting tired of talking about these two. Yes, Patrick, there's been another Santino Ferrucci and Romain Grosjean thing. The battle that started in Barber Motorsports Park way back, I think in April of this year, continues on as yet another chapter of this battle of mid, as the internet is calling these type of battles now. Continued with the warm-up session on Sunday, where Santino Ferrucci just throws a block on Grosjean for no reason coming out of the corkscrew. Santino got a 5-minute stop and hold in the race for that move. Boys, I'm just going to keep it short and simple. I'm ready for them to have the fight and see what happens. Like, either punch each other or cut it out.
Yeah. Throw hands. Let's just get it over with.
Yeah.
Move on.
I just the two teams keep pushing, keep butting heads with it. We're not going to go into Santino Ferrucci's past because we've done it before on this program. We know
Although
why
it is
he's
a doozy.
here. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Askamai got kicked out of Trident. Roman Grosjean, it didn't go that great for him in Formula One. IndyCar's been better, but he hasn't had the success that he may have wanted to when he first came over here. But for these two to still be fussing at each other, it is completely ridiculous. But as you can see, the results right now, Alex Palou sitting there at 285 points, leading the way after he picked up the win at Laguna Seca, absolutely dominated. And since Alex Palou has been there, I don't think he's been off the podium since he's come to this racetrack. There's three things he's good at: winning championships, racing well at Laguna Seca, and getting lawsuits for contract disputes.
I appreciate that.
The man is consistent. Sorry, my chair is
Wasn't it a couple weeks ago that Palou and Dixon were like tied? Not necessarily tied, but they were like within a couple points of each other, right?
Yeah, Dixon was right there. And since then, Alex has just exploded while Dixon's had a couple of missteps.
Will Power jumps him.
Yeah, like Will Power's now in second. Scott Dixon had that issue earlier in the race on Sunday where he got into the wall, lost him some position. So he's back to third, 253 points. Alex Palou is starting to go away with this one a little bit, guys, as we go into the second half of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not necessarily surprising. I mean, we were talking about, Palou obviously being a very good driver, very good at what he does. And we were talking about Scott Dixon, just you never count him out. He's the Iceman. But I think the Iceman got iced because, I mean, like you're saying, Palou's just kind of walking away with it here at this point. And, that Dixon or Will Power have got to put together a solid second half to catch him up and bring a title fight.
Yeah, they have to put on a great second half and able to catch him right now. And Michael, we know it's been turbulent for Alex Palou, but it feels like he's starting to find his groove here in IndyCar. And you just gotta, with Chip Ganassi, the rich are getting richer with such a talented driver now racing over there with that team.
Yeah, I like to call him the IndyCar Verstappen because that's what it's starting to feel like. But yeah, he's very consistent, very quick, always up there, finishing well. It's hard to beat a driver like that. And we talk about the amount of talent we have in IndyCar: Will Power, Scott Dixon, all these drivers we have, and it's just I don't think they dropped the ball, but it's just when it comes to that consistency that they need, they just kind of falter there.
Yep. IndyCar is one on consistency. They don't have the playoff reset coming up for them. So Palou has been the king of consistency so far. On the other side, Colton Herta, currently fourth in points yet again. Late in the race, chance to win, even with all those cautions, had to save fuel, finished down the order. He is the anti-Scott Dixon when it comes to fuel saving. That team is always on the wrong side of the fuel save strategy and the tire strategy this week because it turned out to be a race where the red tire was more advantageous. Guess what they ran out of for the final stint of the race? Red tires. They cannot get the strategy right for Colton Herta.
Yeah, they got to get the strategy right as well as the fuel saving if they want to have a chance at, Palou and the championship overall. They got to, it's like we said, it's that consistency that you need in order to win.
Yeah. But they're going to need that consistency. They're going to need to find it soon because Colton is still in range of the points, but he has got to find some sort of win this year. He has 0 wins, only the 1 pole. You know, he's been getting those points with consistency, but it is a struggle right now. As you can see his stats right there, 4th on that list. He's got 3, I think that is top 5s. Actually, I've got the standings right in front of my face. I'll read them off here for you. He's got 3 top 5s and 6 top 10s on the season, but unfortunately just the 1 pole to show on the column and no wins. That's got to improve if he wants to have any opportunity of winning this championship. Now, what might help Colton Herta and a lot of these drivers is the fact that we are going to the hybrid era starting at Mid-Ohio on July 7th. IndyCar released a little infographic on those engines. I'll try to get that up here for you to see right now. So we will go ahead and full screen this. Just going to close some stuff that doesn't need to be open. And the big thing about this engine upgrade is 120 extra horsepower, should be more fuel efficient. I am of the mind that this might help some of the guys that are lacking with the fuel strategy. But I think the most important part for all this, and I'll start with Michael this time, we're not going to have to worry about cars stalling out anymore because they will be able to start by themselves going forward.
That sounds very good, actually.
So the system, the hybrid system, and this is all on IndyCar's Facebook page if you want to check this out. They have 2 main components, the motor generator unit. Now, you've heard that one before from Formula One. So the similar system there where that generates the charge and gives power to the wheels. And they have the energy storage system, basically the battery, with 20 supercapacitors to store the energy created by the motor generation unit. Automatic generation happens with braking and throttle position. They can also do a manual regen method on the steering wheel. A lot of this is similar to what they are going to be doing in Formula One. And you've got drivers like Roman Grosjean, Marcus Ericsson, Chris. They have some running with a system like that before. Those guys might benefit from having this system because it's similar to what they used to have in Formula One.
Yeah. There's definitely advantages to being familiar with a system that's already in place or has been, is what I should say. So not necessarily an entirely new system or so it should help out a little bit with just comfort and trying to figure out how to articulate learning curve. That's what I'm looking for. The learning curve should be a little bit lower.
Yes. And the big thing is that they will have manual deployment options for the battery. That'll be added in addition to the traditional push-to-pass system. And they'll be getting 120 plus horsepower for over 800 horsepower for the first time in 20 years. This hybrid system is going to run at all races. And while we won't have push-to-pass at Indy, we could see that track record fall next year, which means the first era of hybrid IndyCar qualifying is going to be must-see television.
So I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do all the people who want 900 horsepower in NASCAR become Indy fans?
Probably not,
no,
because of the hybrid. But this is what I've been
they
talking
got the
about.
Horsepower.
They do.
That's the only thing that matters is more horsepower.
Oh, come on. Yeah, but
or less racing.
Yeah, but that horsepower has to come from naturally aspirated internal combustion engine, or else it's that commie 15-minute city nonsense with hybrid power and just all sorts of conversations that we could, make fun of for the rest of eternity. But this is a system that if it works in IndyCar, if I'm NASCAR, I'm taking notes and I'm putting this in our car. Probably try to get extra 200 horsepower out of it. You get your 875, 900 horsepower back. this is the only way you're getting big power numbers now for horsepower on engines, especially with the real world emissions rules that are coming up. Hybrid and electric power for cars, that is the future. And the testing ground is motorsports. And the only way you're going to get more manufacturers, and the only way you're going to get that big horsepower number everyone wants to see, these hybrid powertrains like IndyCar is about to run. It's going to be...
I didn't know you could do that.
Oh man.
Yeah, Michael, you missed a lot with the StreamYard, but Michael, you and I are used to watching the hybrids with WEC. This is going to be, what do you think IndyCar fans have to look forward to?
Well, if I could describe it, I've never really seen any issues with the hybrid system in WEC.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem very, eco-efficient. And the way it works, well, they're actually, I think know the way it works better than I does.
Mm-hmm.
But it works pretty well. It, of course, you get that sound of the cars taking off during the pit lane where there's nothing, and then all of a sudden the internal combustion engine turns on. We all love that. And it has produced some really great racing. I think the hypercar system has definitely worked. So if everybody wants a system like that, then I think it'll definitely help out, and by maybe even more manufacturers into certain motorsports that are kind of lacking.
It'll be interesting to see, and I cannot wait to have the racing going on in Mid-Ohio on July 7th. It'll be the first of the hybrid era for IndyCar. That race can be seen. So you head over to the schedule. That race will be seen on NBC and Peacock at 1:30 on Sunday, July 7th. Well, we're going to take our last break of the evening. When we come back, we'll give you your update on Nearest the Win and Formula One. Well, the Red Bulls came back, but the other one is missing in action. We'll talk about that on the other side of this break. Here on the Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Are you a fan of Buffalo sports? Are you thinking of changing loyalties and becoming a Buffalo sports fan? Do you even know where Buffalo is on the map? Did you know Canada is closer to Buffalo than New York City? Welcome to the Buffalo Huddle, every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Patty Bax. This is a podcast designed for you, the passionate sports fan. I know you love your sports. Who doesn't? I cover Buffalo sports and so much more by bringing in the human elements. I call it Buffalo Sports with a Twist. Join me as we take a journey into the world of Buffalo sports. I guarantee you'll fall in love with Buffalo just like I did. Each week we start with an inspiration, question of the day, a Buffalo fun fact, and our weekly challenge to you, the listener. Come huddle up with me every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 4 p.m. Pacific Coast Time for the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. As we say in Buffalo, go Bills!
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your 5-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Adam and Zach may have to update that drop, as the Arizona Coyotes, they won't be able to pick on them anymore because they no longer exist. Sorry, Arizona hockey fans, all three of you. We know you are very upset. But hey, we're back here in the Extra Mile IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I had to throw the shade, but hey, speaking of folks that seem not to exist anymore, Sergio Perez as a capable number 2 with Red Bull Racing, putting out an APB here for Sergio Perez. Has anybody seen him? Because I swear the last month and a half, Chris, this is your second driver. He has been absolutely nowhere. Chris, you're muted.
Chris, you're double muted.
Yes, I am. I was typing. I apologize. Yeah, Checo has been firmly behind Alpine, who are riding 18th, 19th, and Checo's right there behind them. So, very disappointing season out of Checo so far.
Do you have any idea of what's going on, Chris? What I don't understand. Perez, we go from winning races potentially in 2023. He starts off winning races to now he seems to have regressed a bit. And it's the errors he's doing from 2023 just seems like they're coming back in 2024.
Yeah, he's definitely having trouble qualifying. But I think what we're seeing is the rest of the field is catching Red Bull, and the car is not invincible like it once was. Mm-mm. And if we look back even to Canada 2 weeks ago, Red Bull was the third fastest car on the grid. And Checo is not the type of driver who is going to outperform the car. Usually he's the guy that's going to perform the car to what the car can do. But Max is going to always get more out of the car than it's basically capable of. So I think what we're seeing is Checo not having qualifying speed. He gets put back in the pack, and then
he can't overtake. He can't, he can't close the gap in. It's one thing to, be further back. You got slower cars to work with, but then once you get further up the grid, it becomes a little bit harder to overtake because, you're dealing with a lot more faster cars.
Yeah, let's put a few numbers to that fielding we're having with Perez. Since the Chinese Grand Prix, which was his last podium, he was 4th in Miami, 8th in the Emilia Romagna. This Formula One Grand Prix is has too long of a name. DNF'd Monaco in Canada and was 8th in Spain. He's netted 26 points in the last 5 races. That's not going to get it done for a team that's trying to defend the championship with a car that, as Chris has said, is not the strongest on the grid anymore, but Max did end up picking up the win at in the Spanish Grand Prix, but Checo could only do 8th because he had another bad qualifying effort. And it starts to ask the question here of, did they make a mistake by re-signing him to that 2-year deal?
Personally, yes. I know that the Max Verstappen Carlos Sainz was just a pipe dream. We know that the dads don't like each other, and one
I
of them
feel
has
like
so
that combination. Sorry to cut you off, Chris. I feel like that combination could have potentially been like another Nico Lewis type of situation, because you have a driver that's winning, and then you also have a driver that wants to be that winning presence. And I just feel like there's potential conflict there, and that's what they're trying to avoid when they didn't sign Sainz. I think if they would have, that would have been great. But I think there is conflict. I feel like there.
That's a tough one. But I don't know. I think that I don't know how to put this without like really pissing some people off, but I think the talent gap between Lewis and Nico was a little bit tighter than it would be between Max and Carlos.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily saying that's not a testament to either the Lewis versus Max debate. That's not at all what this is. Nico, in his own right, was a very good driver.
Yes.
And they had equipment that was the class of the field, and they were each other's own enemy. Whereas right now, if Sainz comes in, that car's third best on the grid. They are not their own worst enemy. They are teammates trying to better, the two cars on the grid that are faster than them right now. And Carlos and Max have been teammates before, and they were fine. The dads were not. And I think what really came down to it was Red Bull being scared of Jos Verstappen, which I would be scared of him too, for things that he's allegedly done in the past.
Yeah.
It was a dream combination as a Red Bull fan to have those two, because it would be like 2022, 2023 again, where it's just 1-2s all the time. So Carlos would have been ideal, but I still would have preferred somebody else in that second seat going forward. I think, if anything, the last handful of weeks we've seen, we just had the graphic up with Checo scrounging together 26 points in 5 or 6 races. That's not acceptable. It's just not. And we've seen drivers get demoted for less.
Yeah,
Where
I was going to bring that up. Albon and Gasly, if they've been doing these results, they would have been fired half a season. Perez.
Two DNFs in a row, and anybody that's been in that AlphaTauri seat would have been bumped out. It
just makes you wonder, what does Perez has that keeps him in that seat. And I don't know. Part of me wants to say the Telcel money, but
that money can't be that much at this point, though, right? And the
I
problem is
there's something keeping him in that seat.
Well, the Oracle money is the big money.
Yeah. Well, my concern is this: back when Red Bull was the only game in town, Perez having these type of performances, it really didn't matter. Now you've got McLaren, who, despite their best efforts, are the best team on the grid right now and have an opportunity to take some wins off of Max Verstappen,
I
which
just think they need to take. I just think they need to. I don't want to say make better strategy calls, but I just think they need just that little bit extra,
Yeah.
and they can consistently challenge McLaren. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to consistently challenge Red Bull, and Perez is just going to be, nowhere. And
well,
they're
that
gonna
could
be like,
cost Red Bull the constructors championship if Perez can't pick this up. Piastri is starting to come together.
Can we get the
starting to develop
standings
as
up?
a driver. Yeah, I can get those up right now. Perez is starting to develop. Not Perez, sorry. Piastri is starting to develop as a driver. Lando is finally starting to deliver on his promise. It's concerning right now.
and then
Here are your
Ferrari. I don't know if they're going to be a factor later on this year. I don't, like I said, I don't know how you bring 10 upgrades to a race weekend and regress. So I'm not sure if they're going to be in the fight. But I definitely do see McLaren, being up there.
Well, we've got like 24 races this year, so there's plenty of time for McLaren to catch Ferrari. And if Red Bull can't get reliable scoring out of Perez, there's plenty of time for McLaren to catch Red Bull right now. That lead is not as assailable as we thought it was at the start of this year.
Yeah.
No, I personally think Ferrari can and probably will win the constructors.
That is a shocker.
I don't know, man. They seem to be falling off.
Yeah,
that car was a lot stronger than it was.
Monaco, ever since Monaco.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think they can do it.
Maybe, I don't know, but whatever they did in Canada and Spain, they need to not do again.
Yeah, I really think McLaren is going to catch and pass Ferrari. I mean, they could do that in a couple of races, the way things are going right now. And then they can be on the heels of Red Bull. And for Max Verstappen, he's going to have to do the heavy lifting.
Yeah,
and how can they get that car back to where it needs to be? Because this right now, to be honest, we're kind of seeing what the cost cap was supposed to do, even though we all have our opinions on how that thing is set up. But we are Austria bound.
Okay.
I think that it's working the way it was designed to, because the teams in the past the last year, not calendar year, but since summer break last year to today, those teams have caught up to Red Bull big time. And it's everybody cried about the wind tunnel not being that big of a deal. Meanwhile, even Red Bull was it's going to be a big deal. It just relies on the competency of the other teams to take advantage of the penalty, and McLaren did. Mercedes did. These teams, the only way that the wind tunnel thing works is if the other teams have competent, engineers, and they did. And so now it takes a while, but now we're seeing that these other teams are catching Red Bull. Red Bull's third fastest on the grid now. They're not even fastest. The only thing that's keeping Red Bull afloat right now is this guy right there.
Yes. It's going to be interesting.
Anybody is saying he's talentless or it's the car, I think you might want to stop that argument because third fastest car doesn't win as consistently as he does. So I will give my props to Verstappen there.
He's definitely got some talent. As we're heading into Austria, which is Red Bull's hometown, so they are really going to be amped up to try to win this race. The big thing coming in is how are they going to officiate the corners? We had over 80, count them, 80 track limit violations during last year's Austrian Grand Prix. To combat that, they've added some more gravel traps at the Red Bull Ring. Fellas, hopefully that keeps the number of track limit violations to a minimum. But the one thing about this track, it is going to be very quick and have a lot of passing with those 3 DRS zones.
Yeah, it's it's the main straight, and there's passed it down. I was about to say the backstretch, like this was NASCAR, but it's gonna be the backstretch. That's gonna be another good opportunity. Sorry about
Bless
that.
you.
Yeah, I'm talking for it. But yeah, there's plenty of overtaking opportunities, and hopefully it won't turn out like F124, where there's a massive DRS trend. But definitely a lot of passing opportunities. I think this track is a very very hard on tires too, so it's gonna take a lot to get with that. I think as far as tire wear, Ferrari is one of the best cars on tires, ironically. So I feel like they might have an advantage if they decide to go long, but we'll see.
I think any console player will probably agree with me that Austria is a favorite track to race on if you play any of the F1 games, or like Gran Turismo, or really anything where the Red Bull Ring is in it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely love this track.
Very, very fun track.
It's just fun to race on, and it always puts on a good show with Formula One too. It's a really simple track, but it just delivers, and
It is.
I love it. It's hands down probably in terms of like overall satisfaction of a track, probably my favorite date, calendar date of the year for the F1 season.
Yeah, with that race coming up this weekend, there's rain in the offing, so it could be even more strategy plays coming up with the Austrian Grand Prix. And we did have a contract extension announced. Lance Stroll's back with Aston Martin.
What a surprise.
Larry, can we get the sad trumpet?
I don't think we're surprised, but
No.
this is a move that they really should have tried to find.
How long was the contract for Stroll?
Does it really matter?
I
No,
don't.
but remember when we were trying to say that Yuki was going to get the seat now?
Yeah, we were wrong with that one.
Yuki won't get it till 2026.
Oh,
At minimum.
hopefully.
Yeah, he'll get it, but
Well, he might end up getting Alonso's seat.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it's probably more likely Alonso's seat. It just says 2025 and beyond, so there's definitely an implication.
Oh, he has an indefinite seat at Aston Martin. He can race there as long as he likes.
Well, yeah.
How do we look at Lance's career in Formula One at this point?
It had promise, in my opinion, but then it just
Underwhelming.
Yeah, it had promise, but then later on, it's very underwhelming. He's had moments of greatness. Don't get me wrong, but
Especially early season last year. Remember, like the first 4 or 5 weeks, Alonso picked up second place finishes, and Lance was not even scoring points.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
That right there basically told us all we needed to know. They had the second fastest car on the grid, and he couldn't score points with it. That gets you, well, look at Checo, I guess, but that gets you fired most places.
yeah, but that runs the team.
It must be nice to have a dad that owns a Formula One team.
I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't either. But he's there to stay. Hopefully, they can continue. Aston Martin can continue the upward trend. I know Alonso has said that he's kind of getting tired of being in the not as good as a position as he was this year. So, hopefully sooner rather than later they can, get back on that upward trend and get back to, consistently scoring podiums like they were last year.
It is what it is at this point with Aston Martin. They are going to only go as far as their two drivers will get them. Fernando Alonso can get them pretty far. I'm not sure about Lance, but we're nearing the checkered flag of this episode. But before we head out, Chris, tell us how we're doing in Nearest the Win.
I'm going there right now.
And while we're sitting here, while we're waiting for that to get up, make sure to keep it locked to iesportsradio.com for all your information on every IE Sports Radio shows. Pick up some delicious beef jerky. Find out more about the shows. Listen to any episode of any IE Sports Radio show you may have missed and more. www.iesportsradio.com. And there's our link right there on the bottom. And, of course, the IE Sports Radio can be found at all of those places where you can hear your podcast, especially the ones down at the bottom of the screen. So, Chris, tell us about Nearest the Win.
Well, really not a lot of change from last week. There was a little bit of change in the mid-pack 4 to 6. They kind of all swapped around a little bit. Darryl, you were 6th last week. But I don't know, pretty straightforward. Pretty big gap between. You got to talk to Miriam about her picks too. She picked up a lot of points this week from not submitting. So, but there's some pretty intriguing battles going on here. So we'll keep tracking those throughout the season. But I suffered a pretty big blow to my lead. I was leading by like 50 some points. Now I'm down to 30 something. So, like I said last week, there's a lot of racing left this season. Yeah. Thank you for that, Larry. A lot of races left to go. So we've seen some huge point swings in very short amounts of time. So nothing is set at all in terms of Nearest the Win.
It's a fun little competition, and it's going to come down to the end. I'm going to make sure to get my points in. I think I'm going to have to use a good driver this week because there's a lot on the line here at Austria. But Chris, Michael, any final thoughts?
I don't think so. How's wedding planning going? Has it started?
We're getting there. We gotta get the house first, then we'll deal with all that. But hey, our Twitters, you see them running there on the bottom right hand corner.
I missed the Lamaze episode. I just wanted to say that the race was awesome.
The race was a lot of fun. I cannot wait for next year with the new cars coming up. As our Twitter handles, I was saying, they're scrolling there on the right hand side of the screen, or from how I see it, the left-hand side of the screen if you want to link up with us during this week. And we've been broadcasting on our Twitter handles, at least 2/3 of our Twitter handles, and Instagram and YouTube as well. Make sure you keep it locked with us this week for another great weekend of racing. And shout out to the H1 Unlimited fleet. They get their season started in Gunnersville, Alabama this week with the race for the Southern Cup.
One last thing, Darryl.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, can you guess what Le Mans race we talked about last week? It's our favorite one to talk about.
The Glen?
No.
No, the Le Mans 24 race.
Yeah.
Oh,
come on!
2016?
Shut up. I gotta bring it up every year, I swear.
Yeah.
Every year we have to bring it up. But hey, it's time for us to get out of here. From Michael and Chris, I'm Darryl. This has been The Extra Mile. Thank you so much for listening. And we will see you at the next green flag. Good night, everybody.